All right, I've got to just tell you, Coffee with KFGO, that's brought to you by Vision Ford Lincoln down in Wapton. Well, we were north of Fargo here. We went up down to Hillsborough. So for those of you that were able to make it, thanks. Great time. Got to visit with a lot of faithful listeners. Introduce myself in person to some new individuals as well. Putting faces to names, enjoy doing all of that. I encourage you, though, if you did not get a chance to go up there and get that sneak peek of the Goose River Brewing, when that does officially open and their beer is on tap and the kitchen is cooking up burgers, everything else that they have in mind, get on up there. This is one of those little areas that I think any town, big or small, envious of with all the planning and all the prep that they put into this. I was pretty impressed. And when they do, in fact, do that, you can bet your bottom dollar we'll be on up there because they were asking. And we're going to come on up and do the show when it does, in fact, get that tap secured. So, again, I'll tell you when, but one of those stops along this journey of Coffee with KFGO that I was pretty impressed with. You want to register your town, of course, kfgo.com. You can go there and do all the latest and have the morning crew, news and views with Joel Heitkamp and a number of us stopping on out. Good time today, and I hope we can do that again all over again next month. 237-5948. That's the Laney studio line. You can text me at the iConsultants of North Dakota text club as well all day today. In fact, some of you have. That's at 35270. In a little bit of time here, we're going to be heading out to New Salem, North Dakota, as we typically do on a Thursday. The usual lineup for you. Spencer Wirt, he's our meat dude. That's brought to you by Audubon Meats. We'll tell you more about what they've got going on in Audubon. But if you have a meat-related question, we're talking cuts, rubs, grilling techniques. Somebody's asking propane versus charcoal preferences. He takes any and all. All I got to do is send them in and be listening to the meat dude here in just a moment. Also, Proof Artisan Distillers, Joel Cath, our friend of the show here, is going to make his monthly appearance. Tell you about, well, we touched on mint juleps for the Kentucky Derby. There wasn't a whole lot of mint that was available. Now that they are, we'll remind you about that. Also, for the Fargo Marathon that's coming up, they're going to be available to you. So after you get all stretched, you go get your run in, you can stop down at Proof, have a gin, have one of the Glen Fargo whiskeys, and of course, Crooked Pharaoh, all of that's going to be available. We do need to dive into what happened yesterday. We covered it in the entire show as it was unfolding, got you all the latest from this crack news team. That's the envy of a lot of other people in this area. With Don Haney, Madison Quinn out on location, Paul Jurgens steering the ship as the news director here at KFGO. There's a reason why they're the most trusted in this area. Bring that all to you. But what we know now following that tragic event, and now at least it does sound as though the victims, the mother in critical but stable condition, that 8-month-old in stable condition, but hearing Police Chief Dave Zabolski on these airwaves earlier today with Joel Heitkamp on News and Views, asked the question because this individual that committed this crime then took his own life in Clay County following a pursuit. Well, there was a warrant, and there was an incident. There was a domestic abuse that had happened and was documented and charged earlier. To hear that in North Dakota, there is a 12-hour window as to some of this with an exception of, domestic assault. We're going to have to break that down a little bit further on, a little bit later on in the show, because my red flag went up saying, well, this seems like something that needs to be addressed at the state level. That North Dakota being one of a few states that has this as a requirement, that you can look at other states that might have it a little bit more fine-tuned. If there was an offense that was done that warrants an arrest, why does that all of a sudden magically have to go away and you have to go an extra step after half of a day passes? But we have that audio. If you missed that interview earlier today on KFGO News and Views, Joel Heitkamp visiting with Police Chief Dave Zabolski, we're going to play back that clip and get your thoughts on that. In the meantime, I'm going to take an early break here. Spencer Wirt, the meat dude, he's right around the corner. Get those questions in. He loves taking your questions ahead of mine, and we'll have that conversation right after this. Afternoons Live is just getting started on a Thursday afternoon. I'm Tyler Axness, and you're listening to KFGO Fargo. Stick around. Meats brings to you Spencer Worth, the Meat Dude, and Audubon Meats. Well, they're under new ownership. Josh and Todd are the two individuals that have taken that shop on over. Locally raised beef. You can check out all the great lists of cuts. The barbecue ribs fall off the bone tender. That's one of the talks of the area here. So I'll tell you more about that after we visit with Spencer Worth, or as you call him, the Meat Dude. Spence, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you doing, Tyler?
Doing well myself. Looks like there's a lot of rain in the area, so I'm sure there's people out there probably trying to get as much in as they can, and then there's going to be a lot of more shop cleaning, even though it's probably not that dirty since it's been wet all summer long. So you getting any precip out there?
Yeah, it's been raining all morning pretty much since about 8:30. So.
All right. Well, I mean, I know we needed it, but at what point is maybe enough time to shut it off? We could use a little bit more later on, but that's not why I called. I called to talk about meats. In fact, before the show started, we had somebody text in. And you can do that if you have any questions, cuts, rubs, whatever it might be that's related to meat, 35270. Somebody had asked your personal preference when it comes to grilling steaks, propane or charcoal for steaks for you?
Well, that kind of depends on the scenario, I guess. They both do a good job at cooking steaks, right? It's heat source, the dry heat, both do a good job. Charcoal adds a little more flavor just because of the natural smoke that charcoal creates. Adds a little bit of flavor into your steaks. And what I mean by the situation is it really depends on how much time I have. And if I really want to spend the time to light the charcoal, get the grill going in order to create or in order to cook a steak. Most of the time, I mean, I use Big Green Egg for all of my smoking, and then I also got a propane grill sitting right next to it. So, evenings after work, if I'm cooking up a steak, I'm just going to throw it on the propane grill. Weekends, get a little more time, want to create a little more special meal, then I'll throw it on the charcoal. But both have their attributes. Both are, have their defaults, I guess. But both cook a great steak. So.
Such a political answer from Spencer Worth, the Meat Dude. They both have merit to them, in which, we both got a couple things going right for us here. So you're saying if it's Saturday afternoon, you got a Shinerbach in hand, you're firing up the charcoal.
Yeah, then I'm going to spend the time to light the Big Green Egg and create a little more appealing meal. But I use propane all the time, too. So I don't have a favorite. It's just a matter of how much time I have.
Don't judge his answers. He likes all of the above, he says. And he's Spencer Wirt, and he's the Meat Dude. And if he likes both, you ought as well. 237-5948. You can call in your questions as well. But I know most of you prefer text at 35270. I'd come across something online talking about veal. And I don't think we've ever talked about veal. And the question that came to mind, knowing that, in the stage of life, it's taking a little different time, a little bit more tender. Is there any difference in how you would prepare and then cook from, anything else if it comes to veal?
So you gotta kind of keep in mind how animals grow and that growth curve throughout their life when they start putting fat on. Obviously bone structure is the first thing to grow. Then they start putting on muscle, and then the last thing that would be added is fat. So when they slaughter veal, they usually don't have the time on their growth curve in order to put on that fat. So if you're cooking meat that's very, very lean, very little fat, your cooking methods have to be different because you can easily dry them out. You mentioned more tender. And that's usually true with veal because it's younger. Those muscles haven't been used as long as, a conventionally finished animal. It is tender, but I think a lot of people put together tenderness and moisture into one, adjective, where there's a difference between the two. You can have a tender cut of meat, but it's dry, or you can have a dry cut of meat that's relatively tender. So veal is going to be with the less amount of fat that animal is putting on. Your cooking methods, your overall eating experience is going to be totally different than conventionally finished beef.
So what's the cooking technique? I mean, if there's not enough fat in there, I'm guessing you're going to have a little some additives to it. Explain the difference in the preparation for me.
Not necessarily additives, but remember while you're cooking, the higher temperature you go, you're cooking moisture out of the product. Well, obviously there's water still in it, so you're just going to have to be very, very cautious, very hesitant on how high a temperatures you're cooking at. Not overcooking it because it will become super dry. So that's more along the lines of what I'm getting to. We discuss. Let's talk about a prime steak, right? We've talked about why is it worth buying prime, and it's an insurance policy that you don't screw up cooking that steak because there's so much fat and so much moisture in that steak. So if you do end up overcooking it, there's still good moisture and good flavor in there. Where veal is the exact opposite of the spectrum. Still good product, super tender because of the younger age of the animal, but you don't have that insurance policy. So if you overcook it, there's nothing in there to help keep its moisture up.
So if you're trying to impress the in-laws for the first time you're cooking over the grill, you're doing prime cut. You're not doing anything else besides that because there's fewer ways to just screw it up. That's my lesson out of that little scenario. More questions.
Yeah, and I think veal is really a really good cut of meat, but I would get some practice before you serve it to your in-laws.
You just walking into the actual grocery. You just walking into the typical grocery store, big box store, and you're buying veal, or is this something that I got to come to a butcher shop and do?
That's a great question. You don't see veal very often in this area, in this region. I think it's more of an East Coast, West Coast thing. So, yeah, you're probably not going to be able to walk into your local shop anywhere in the state of North Dakota and find it. Maybe there's somebody listening that knows there's a secret place that carries veal.
Well, there's the challenge.
Chime in, but
yeah, challenge to all of you. 35270. Is there any place local you buy veal? You eaten veal before? More questions coming in for you. Tyler for the Meat Dude. Is it rub or season or rub and season?
Is it rub and season or season and rub? You got to repeat that one.
It's a bit of a riddle for you. So it's riddle me this. This person is saying, look, if I use a rub, do I not use season in addition? So is it rub or season, or can I put the rub and also season it? Is the way I decipher this riddle of a text question.
So if I'm understanding the riddle correctly, rubs and seasonings are the same thing. It's called a rub, a dry rub, because the act of applying it and rubbing it into the meat. But seasoning and rubs is interchangeable. Now, if they're asking at what point of the process do you rub the meat, well, that would be after you put the seasoning on it.
Okay. I hope that answered. It was a bit of a riddle, but I appreciated the text question. If you have a question, you still got a couple of minutes here at 35270. This one was thrown out the other day that I didn't get to. I think it was last week, but I wrote it down as I promised you all I'll do if we don't get to it. They're wondering about, and of course I didn't write down word for word, but okay, we've talked about grass-fed beef before, Spencer, and of course we have a new audience every time here. But they're wondering, is there more nutrition in the meat of beef that was strictly grass-fed?
So that's, the grass-finished, grass-fed market is an interesting one. If you look at the data, the claim that grass-fed always has to do with the type of fatty acids that they have is higher in grass-fed, the healthy fatty acids compared to conventionally raised meat. Lots of data out there. It's kind of disproven that they both have good attributes. I'm not a nutritionist. I don't like to get into the nutrition of comparing something that is the same animal, right? The flavor profile, the texture is different between the two. If grass-fed suits your needs, by all means, it's still beef and you're eating beef, and that's what the name of the game is. There's lots of information you can find on comparing the two, but at the end of the day, beef is beef, and whatever we can do as butchers and producers to get people to eat more beef, I think that's kind of the end goal. So yeah, it's kind of a unique situation that there's two different types of beef within the same. Beef is beef, but yeah, one of the producers here that I slaughter for is full grass finished beef, and that's what they sell and promote. And they have a following. They have customers who love it, and it's kind of just buying prime versus choice versus select versus grass finish. They're all slightly different, and people enjoy them for different reasons. So as long as everybody's eating beef, I still have a job. So
there's a political answer again. Hey, just eat beef. It's all good, man. Spencer, it's always fun. We'll chat again next Thursday, all right?
Sounds great.
All right, Spencer Worth, the Meat Dude. That's brought to you by Audubon Meats. So I'll tell you more about their deals after I get you caught up with Paul Juergens in that award-winning KFGO News Center. Come back with Rusty Arverson and Proof Artists and Distillers, all in the first hour of Afternoons Live. You got to lock into KFGO Fargo.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Otter Tail Power Company, positively impacting communities they serve for more than a century.
Fargo-Moorhead, it is mostly cloudy, 57 degrees. I'm Paul Juergens. Police Chief Dave Zabolski says while there was a warrant for the arrest of the man who shot a woman and her baby at a South Fargo restaurant, officers were under an initial timeline to find 24-year-old Malik Gill. Zabolski says such warrants are only active for a short period of time. In this case, though, prosecutors approved the warrant for Gill, and he was wanted.
Domestic violence is an exception, but it only allows us 12 hours to make that arrest. So a guy like this can assault his domestic partner, and if he eludes our capture for more than 12 hours, the only thing we can do is refer it to the state's attorney for review, and then they review it and decide what they're going to do. And again, I think in this case, I would credit them with actually issuing the warrant, which came out April 25th.
Zabolski on KFGO News and Views also said police, along with state and federal investigators, are working to determine where Gill got the handgun. As a felon, he was not supposed to have any firearms. Gill shot and killed himself south of Hawley, Minnesota, following a pursuit with Clay County deputies. Law enforcement was tracking him using OnStar. He had stolen an SUV from a South Fargo home. The woman remains in critical condition. The baby was shot in the hand and thigh. 57 degrees. This is KFGO News. This is KFGO News. 5 people were hurt when the SUV they were in crashed on a washed-out road southwest of Lisbon, North Dakota last night. It happened shortly after 7. The State Patrol says 43-year-old Wesley Aylander of Lisbon was driving when he went into the washed-out culvert and crashed into the opposite embankment. Aylander and the 4 teenage passengers had serious but non-life-threatening injuries. 3 were airlifted to a hospital in Fargo. No one was wearing a seatbelt. That road had been closed earlier because of the washout. The Better Business Bureau of Minnesota and North Dakota is warning new parents to watch for scams as a result of the nationwide shortage of baby formula. The Bureau says scammers typically ask for payment through PayPal or Venmo, and the products are often not delivered. People should watch for signs of potential online scams, including positive reviews on the website, along with misspellings, grammatical errors, or other descriptive language that is inconsistent with the product. Another sign is the lack of a physical address for the business. After the 2020 census, Minnesota was given the 435th and final congressional seat in the House, preserving the number of seats it has held since 1960. If Minnesota had counted just 26 fewer people, that seat would have gone to New York. According to a new report from the Census Bureau, a more than 3% overcount in Minnesota's final census numbers amounted to around 219,000 residents. Overcounts suggest people who were counted more than once, for example, children of divorced parents who share custody, or people with vacation homes. Minnesota is one of 8 states that had statistically significant overcounts. There were some light moments as Minnesota House and Senate negotiators, facing a tight deadline, figure out how to spend $4 billion in tax relief that legislative leaders and the governor agreed to use from the budget surplus. Senator Tom Bach, an independent from Cook, prompted a few chuckles when he asked the committee to take care of what he called one little taconite issue.
So that I can get that off my plate before I get too busy, and we'll be peace in the valley among the Rangers. So
Senator Bach,
get it out of the way.
Anytime you talk about a little or small provision, I always get a little nervous as Rangers get together.
And that was lead House negotiator, Democratic Representative Paul Marquardt of Dilworth. Fargo-Moorhead, we have some rain off to our west-northwest. Looks like some showers, maybe a thunder shower this afternoon. We did hit 59 at our KFC studios earlier. 44, mostly cloudy tonight. Looks like showers and thunderstorms will end early this evening. Clouds, windy tomorrow, another chance of showers, and 50 for the high. Just 48 Saturday, mostly cloudy, maybe some sprinkles and morning frost. And 56 Sunday, partly sunny, a possible frost again Sunday morning. Cloudy, 57. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Rusty Overson back in the KFGO studio.
Hello.
Made it back from Hillsboro, safe and
As
sound.
did you, yes.
That
yes,
tour was, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get on up there and have some of the beer once I get it done.
Yeah, they've got a lot of plans underway, and it looks like it's going to be pretty awesome when they get her done.
Goose River Brewing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
remember
thanks
that
for
name.
having us. Yeah.
If you don't, we'll keep reminding you because I'm going to be stopping on up there.
Yeah, great location, too. You know, you think Hillsboro, halfway between Grand Forks, Fargo, generally. I mean, great spot. Great spot.
Nothing wrong there.
Yep.
Also, another place I like to stop in is Proof Artisan Distillers. We'll be visiting with Joel Cath here in just a moment.
Yeah.
Revisit Mint Juleps. Growing local is something that they're very proud of.
Yeah, and they've got some pretty cool stuff going on. Since Proof began back in 2015, it's been a while now, the corn for their Crooked Furrow bourbon has been grown using no-till and cover crop farming techniques from Joe Brecker near Rutland, North Dakota. Now, Joe says he was an early adopter for no-till farming starting back in 1980 with his dad back in the day. Now, planting has been a slow go for a lot of guys, Joe included, but, you know, Joe's the kind of guy, Tyler, when you look at an example of a farmer who's forward-thinking, thinks about conservation practices, early adopter. That's what makes us proud in agriculture.
Yeah. Well, another one of those cool stories where I always heard about growing local and to know that someone like Joe, forward thinking, as you say, ahead of the times, and I'm sure there's other people that are trying to catch up to him and his family farm down there.
Yeah, because, so many of the conversations we've been having recently has been about rewarding farmers for conservation practices, for cover crops and adopting these types of things. But for a lot of guys, they've been doing it a lot of years.
Yeah, there's no question.
Yep.
I want to talk about some planting progress in the next hour.
10-4.
I got a message from my buddies up in the north central part of the state that they were still going at 4 a.m. this morning.
Oh, my.
That's when they decided, okay, maybe that's enough for today.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Well, and when you look at the radar, they probably had to get as much as they could done last night because they knew today wasn't much of an option, I'm guessing. But.
Yep.
Rusty, appreciate it. I'll talk to you next hour. Don't forget Audibles today. You're part of that.
Okay, thank you, Tyler.
Brought to you by Don's Car Wash, by the way. CBS National News on the way. Speaking of proof, Joel Kath, he's one of the head honchos over there. He's going to be revisiting about mint juleps now that mint's available. Also, National Bourbon Day coming up in a short amount of time. He'll tell you about all of that. Actually, now that I look at the date, June 14th, that's Election Day. What? How fitting. National Bourbon Day on good old local primary day here in North Dakota.
Also Flag Day.
Oh, yeah.
Just a note.
Flag Day, Eric Johnson's birthday, Donald Trump's birthday. I think there's someone else's birthday in there, too. But
my goodness.
Wash it all down with a Proof Artisan Tiller bourbon. We'll talk with Joel Kath next right here on KFGO.
I'm going to break my
Once you get it established, it's easy to grow.
Yeah, well, and perhaps because of the weather, obviously, like you say, with the growing, but even in stores, it was so dang hard to find it. But it's back, and it's not out of season. The warmer days are, well, somewhere around here. We get spoiled for a couple of days, and then they go away for a week. And unfortunately, we're at that period where it has gone away. But mint juleps, go ahead.
Unfortunately, Crooked Furrow is always available. Please pick it up at your local liquor store, request it at your favorite bar and tavern. And the mint julep is really easy to make. Crooked Furrow bourbon, simple syrup, which is basically sugar and water, and mint and crushed ice.
Yeah.
So I don't call crushed ice one of the ingredients, but and you mix it however sweet you want it by the amount of sugar you put into it. Mm-hmm. And if you made it too sweet, just add a little booze back into it, and that cuts the sweetness without cutting the flavor.
Yeah, you just keep going back and forth. A little sugar, a little booze, a little sugar, a little booze. And
There
you'll
you
find
go.
that perfect balance. You know, you got that crushed ice that'll dilute just a little bit over time.
Yes.
You know, Rusty Alverson just had a great conversation. He visited with one of your farmers down in the Rutland area, this Joe Brecker, talking about, you know, some of the cover crops, some of the things that they've done for you. And since you've started Proof, you know, the corn for that Crooked Furrow you're talking about, that bourbon, well, I didn't know this entire time that this was the operation that's going on, Joel.
We should have been highlighting that all along. Joe is fantastic. And, he does no-till and cover crops, and he's been doing that for years. So all of our Crooked Furrow bourbon has been grown right down there near Rutland. Mm-hmm. And local, stays local. Less than 10% of our shelf price leaves the state, and the only two things that leave the state is the federal tax and the glass. So grown local, stays local, it really does make a difference.
Well, and I've always known the local, but now that we can put a name and a face to where this is growing and then where you get it from, it makes it all that more enjoyable as we think about how we're giving back locally here. Joel, I tease because National Bourbon Day is coming up, and of course we're talking Crooked Furrow bourbon. And I just put together June 14th is also our local elections. What a perfect combination for your watch parties out there. National Bourbon Day.
There's a symbolic meaning there somewhere. Yeah.
Somewhere. You can find it in your own minds, whether you're celebrating or putting the sorrows away. Proof Crooked Furrow bourbon is going to be a perfect match for either occasion. I don't know if that's an endorsement you want, but that's the one I just gave you.
That'll work.
It'll work. But locally here, you and Proof are always all over the place. So sometimes there's big events happening right in our backyard. And this weekend you got the Fargo-Moorhead Marathon going on. People are coming from all over the country to run the fine streets of Fargo-Moorhead. And, of course, they go, through the downtown most times. Are you guys going to be open when it comes to this Saturday?
We will have the tasting room open for tours and tastings 11 to 3 or 4 on Saturday. 11 to 4 on Saturday. It will be a challenge to get there, I'll be honest, because the race goes right in front of Proof. So one must park a little ways away. But if you're milling around downtown Fargo, please stop in, see the still. Phenomenal facility, beautiful equipment, and fantastic booze.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? After you get all done with your running, you just take that slow jaunt back over and have that refreshment, because certainly you've earned it if you've been participating in the marathon here. Joel, is there... Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
No, you
No, I was going to say, I don't know that if the participants want to drop in, but at least their supporters could drop in.
Sure. Fair. I'm just saying that if I just got done running 26 miles, I'd need a drink, and I would think I'd be coming to Proof after the fact. So, folks, again, if you're going to be down there watching and, well, in my case, participating, Proof, they're going to open the doors for you 11 to 4 o'clock Saturday. And if a participant shows their numbers, you come on in, and you know what, maybe they'll give you a wink and a nod, and congratulations. Joel, is there anything I missed this week before I let you go?
Well, I'm glad Joe is in the field planting more corn. So this corn will be available in the fall of 2026. Fall of 2026, 27, the corn that's being planted today will be available, Crooked Furrow bourbon across the area.
Wow. So we're typically a 5-year process. Did you say 2027 or is 26 4 years?
Yeah, it's 4.5. It'll be 4.5 years. We'll distill it. We'll ferment it and distill it this fall, and winter, and it'll be available 4.5 years from then.
Wow.
It's a process.
Yeah, it is. I don't have the patience, as people that listen regularly know, so I'm glad someone does, and someone like you that actually puts the work and time into it. Joel, I got a message for you in our text club at 35270. Tyler, I won the gin seminar tickets a couple of weeks ago, and I had Joel make me a mint julep after hearing about it, and it was great. Thanks for the tickets. Great event by Proof. So you got a fan out there that we sent down for your gin class.
That was a great event. Thanks much.
Yeah, well, thanks for providing. Thanks for hosting those. I know when I participated, I learned a lot. Joel, I'm going to let you go. I always appreciate it, my friend, and we'll chat again soon, all right?
Cheers.
Cheers to you. Joel Kath, Proof Artisan Distillers. You get on down there. Saturday, they're going to be open 11 to 4 for observers, the cheerleaders on the side of the streets, cheering people on as they run, walk, jog by. And certainly if you have been running, walking, or jogging, you're going to want to get a refreshment after the fact, and they'll be just the place you're going to want to go. I'm going to get Too Tall Tom Szymanski's weather forecast for you here in just a moment. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday. And the way our law in North Dakota is established right now, folks, you got to change this. This is a glaring example. Not a partisan issue whatsoever, but it's certainly something that someone's going to have to introduce to make this correction, in my opinion. And I'll get yours. When we come back here, Thursday afternoon's rolling on. KFGO time is 3:49. I'm Tyler Axis, and this is Afternoons Live. How many of you follow along with the PGA, but the PGA Championship opening round getting underway, or it has been underway, and here a feat of strength Impressive, maybe not. Maybe you find it wrong discussing it doesn't matter, but it opened my eyes. John Daly, we've all heard of John Daly. At least I assume it, especially if you've followed along with professional golf. But there were people that followed him around in the first round. Full 18 holes, and the person I'm getting this from is Will Brinson. He is, let me get here, CBS Sports. He's a senior NFL writer, but obviously, you know what, they've all got some of their side hustles as well. So they've been following John Daly around and keeping track of John Daly's, approach to the game of golf. That's the most, I guess, polite way I can put it. Here's the final tally of literally everything he put into his body over a full 18 holes. 21 cigarettes, 12 Diet Cokes, 6 packs of peanut M&Ms, 0 ounces of water. That is either impressive, disgusting, but either way, peak performance.
Do you think it's the
John
standard size pack of peanut M&Ms or king size?
No, it's got to be standard. You can't do 6 king size packs.
I
of
couldn't
peanuts.
do
21 cigarettes
or the 12 Diet Cokes.
Busch Light, on the other hand.
Well, you know,
you're walking it off, though. I mean,
depends
you got
on the
18
round.
holes. You're forced to walk at the PGA. There's no golf carts. Could you imagine doing that? And somebody else had commented, and I've got to get it here because, of course, and somebody else that had followed it, he is at a different one. The Memorial, 1 year ago, they followed Daly for about 6 holes. And it was fascinating. This person's constant smoking and Diet Coke drinking, barely any practice swings, does not stop moving when other guys are playing, and even hit a ball that was moving when he missed a gimme putt. This guy is playing golf in a whole league of his own. He is, if anybody resembled the real world Happy Gilmore, it's Daly. It absolutely has to be.
Yes.
But that physique. I mean, there's no other sport where you can be the age of John Daly, smoking cigarettes while you're participating, not having any water, chugging Diet Cokes, and still be allowed to perform.
Yeah, maybe like 1914 baseball. You could do things
Well, you
like
usually
this.
had a dip. You had the big league chewing, right?
But John Daly is a fascinating human. He is fully embraced his image in the golf world.
I know. And it kind of makes me root for the guy. I don't know why, because it's like, I don't care. I've got this image, and I'm just, like you say, going to embrace it. And, I mean, I don't think you fake this. You don't fake 21 cigarettes.
It's authenticity, right? That's something you can cheer for.
Uh-huh.
He is unapologetically John Daly.
And, you know, he's rocking the beard gut. He doesn't care. That white mullet that he's basically cut his hair into, and the white beard. Embraced it, he did.
And I believe he still wears golf attire from a company called Loudmouth, I want to say it is. It's got just ridiculous golf pants and shirts and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be loud.
Yep.
Tyler, wow, you can smoke cigarettes on the course? Apparently. I mean, I would imagine that if that were not the case, somebody from the PGA Championship is saying, Mr. Daly, please put out the cigarette.
They must make him put it down when he's going to go hit a ball.
Well, yeah, because I imagine family friendly. They don't want to have John Daly with his heater sticking out of his mouth in his backstroke.
Although that would be kind of awesome.
I would want that on a T-shirt for sure. We're talking loudmouth T-shirt. I'd put that loudmouth on my T-shirt. Wear that around. John Daly with the heater hanging out. Tyler, John Daly also recorded an album. What? What kind of musical talent? Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be talent, but what kind of music does John Daly record? Not hip-hop, I would imagine.
It's got to be Southern rock. It's got to be country or Southern rock.
Yeah, he's either got the Skynyrd vibe or the washed-up Kid Rock vibe, to where he wants to be kind of country, but still try to hang on the rock. Yeah, I think you probably nailed it. In fact, when we get you caught up with CBS National News, I'm doing the Google. John Daly's music. And if it's appropriate for a family-friendly show, perhaps we'll sprinkle some of that in the next hour. Here's what's coming up in the next hour. I want to talk about what I heard from Chief Sobolski on News and Views with Joel Heitkamp earlier, about a 12-hour window when it comes to warrants, arrests, misdemeanors, domestic abuse. This seems like a loophole that needs to be closed the next time that Bismarck gets together and lawmakers there, because if you have something that is arrestable, there's an offense that was committed, I don't care if it's a misdemeanor, if it warrants an arrest, why does that all of a sudden, poof, now you got to go through a whole other process just because half of a day has gone by? We got that, and of course, he was a felon with a firearm. All of that's on the table right after the CBS and KFGO News. I'm Tyler Axis. Stick around. Madonna's Vogue had such a bumping bass line to it. Single Vogue hit number one, 1990. Madonna, that is. But more importantly, in my mind, one of the greatest 80s movies to have been made and released for our public consumption was released on this date in theaters, and that's none other than Patrick Swayze and Roadhouse. Roadhouse hit theaters 1989 on this date. Also on this date, to a lesser extent, but also impactful for many of us. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace hit theaters 1999. No more Jar Jar Binks, please. Also another good movie that did come out, Road Trip. Boston? Austin? That's good stuff. If you haven't watched any of those, you're missing out. In particular, I'm talking Roadhouse. When we come back, I'm going to get you caught up with that award-winning news director, Paul Juergens, best in the business by far. Going to get you all the local heads. Birch Burdick, state's attorney. Decipher what I heard earlier about the warrants in North Dakota. He's going to do that when we come back here on KFGO.
KFGO News, cloudy, some rain in and around Fargo-Moorhead now, 57. Fargo's fire marshals determined that a department fire last week was caused by a cigarette at a balcony. Ryan Erickson says the blaze started on a third-floor balcony and extended to the attic and roof at 605 11th Street South. The fire displaced 28 tenants. The building has 12 units. Police are investigating the theft of personal property from the building that took place when the tenants were forced to find another place to live. Damage to the building is estimated at $350,000. The driver and 4 passengers in an SUV were injured seriously when that vehicle crashed into a culvert washout. That was on a rural road about 6 miles southwest of Lisbon, North Dakota last night. The State Patrol says the crash happened on a section of road closed due to the washout was caused by erosion and recent heavy rain. When the SUV hit the washout, the front of the vehicle struck the opposite embankment. The driver, 43-year-old Wesley Aylander of Lisbon, and 4 teenage passengers were not wearing seat belts. 3 of them were transported to Fargo by Sanford AirMed using 2 helicopters and an airplane. Drama is not on the agenda for Minnesota Democrats, who will hold their state convention in Rochester this weekend. The 1,200 delegates will endorse Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Secretary of State Steve Simon for re-election. They're all running unopposed. The gathering will likely be much different than last weekend's Republican state convention when it took delegates 9 ballots to endorse Scott Jensen for governor. Fargo-Moorhead, areas of rain, thunder showers this afternoon. We did hit 59 earlier at our KFGO studios in South Fargo. Mostly cloudy tonight, showers, thunder showers this evening, and 44. Tomorrow, windy, cloudy, another shower chance, and 50. 48 Saturday, mostly cloudy, maybe some sprinkles, and morning frost possible both Saturday and Sunday. Saturday's high, 48, 56, partly sunny on Sunday. 58, Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Now, yesterday, as events were unfolding, and many of you turned into KFGO to get all the news you needed to know about that shooting that took place at the restaurant down on South Veterans Boulevard, led to, a car theft, led to a police chase, and ultimately the suspect shooting himself in Clay County. And what happened earlier today, because, while we were deciphering what was coming in and sharing that with you, just the facts, was, you had all these levels of law enforcement cooperating, collaborating to get this suspect, and ultimately he took the coward's way out. But to have Fargo PD, West Fargo PD, Highway, SWAT, Clay County, there were so many mechanisms and all seemed to work fluid. And, we appreciate the work that went into all of that. But earlier today, to get kind of the recap, Joel Heidkamp on News and Views had Police Chief Dave Zabolski on and was talking about, could there have been anything to prevent this individual who was charged with he was a felon. So one was the issue of how did this felon illegally obtain a gun, but also there was talk about a warrant and something that was transpired that about 12 hours in North Dakota, and how we're one of those unique states in that circumstance. And I have that audio, and I want to play that back because we have the state's attorney here in Cass County, Birch Burdick, a friend of the show, hopefully going to be able to explain a little bit more about what police chief here in Fargo, Dave Zabolski, said. Eric, if you can play that clip. For me, there's a lot to unpack there, and you know what? I wanted to have some help. So, Birch Burdick, state's attorney here in Cass County. Welcome to Afternoons Live. How are you today?
Thanks, Tyler. Happy to join you.
Well, I appreciate. So you just heard Police Chief Dave Zabolski and talking about state's attorneys there. You know what? That set me back as I was coming back from Hillsborough, where we were on location this morning. Can you decipher some of that for us as to what is unique in North Dakota, the state's attorney's office getting involved, and how an individual like this, that everyone seemed to have known was an issue and had some challenges, wasn't arrested earlier?
Well, a couple of things, and I can talk specifically, but to a limited extent, about the situation there because I was not directly involved in it. It ended up getting resolved, as you mentioned, before our office was really involved. First of all, let's applaud, as you did, the fact that we've got great cooperation amongst our law enforcement agencies here and across the river. That's always been helpful. It will continue to be helpful in the future. The situation that I think the chief was referring to, and I didn't have the full context of his conversation, is under North Dakota law, there are certain things you can do without warrants and certain things you can do with warrants, right? So there is a law that speaks generally about arresting without a warrant, not dealing with domestic violence situations. I'll get to that in a moment. And in non-domestic violence situations, an officer can arrest without a warrant, for example, when he sees an offense committed in his presence. So, just a very simple term. Let's say there's an officer standing on the sidewalk and suddenly he sees one guy swing at another guy's head and knock him down. Well, he could conceivably arrest him there without a warrant because he saw the crime being committed. In addition, again, not talking specifically about domestic violence cases, but if the officer has reasonable cause to believe that a felony has been committed and that John Doe did it, he could arrest John Doe. It's always better, of course, to get a warrant when you can, but oftentimes when you're hunting for people and something is hot, you want to deal with it then. Use an extreme case, somebody alleged to have committed a murder, for example. Domestic violence raises a somewhat different set of circumstances, and I believe the legislature did that because it was intending to help out in cases of domestic violence, and I don't know for sure, but I expect the legislature did that because it realizes that there is a certain opportunity for the participants in the case of domestic violence, both the perpetrator and the victim, to keep running into one another with some frequency. And so they created some additional flexibility. And so an officer, if they believe that a domestic violence assault has taken place, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, they can arrest. That seems like the appropriate response under the law, and they can do it without a warrant, as long as they feel they've got probable cause that it occurred, and that this is again, domestic. In other words, it deals with a family member or household member as defined under the law. But as the chief was referring to, if 12 hours has elapsed since the incident, then under North Dakota law, the officer's got to secure an arrest warrant before making an arrest. That may often involve our office in one way or another, but we can also appeal to judges if we provide them probable cause to believe that crime has been committed. So I think that's what he was referring to. So in sum, there's one set of procedures that work for non-domestic violence cases, some additional flexibility in domestic violence cases, but some limitations on that flexibility.
Well, and the 12-hour window was what really had me scratching my head. Have you heard any reason why half a day goes by after this, and you know what, he's evaded police, or she is evaded, I don't kind of generalize here, and then all of a sudden, well, you got to go through another loophole. I mean, that just doesn't seem to make sense to me. If something were, committed a crime, misdemeanor or otherwise, if it was arrestable at that time, half a days later, I think it should still be of the same circumstance. Is there any reason why 12 hours?
I couldn't, I don't know that I could tell you exactly why the legislature wrote it that way. What I can tell you is that has been the law here for well over 20 years. But I don't know exactly when that language was put in place, nor exactly why it was put in place the way it was. But I think that they were trying to provide some additional flexibility, some additional opportunity. So even in misdemeanor cases that did not, if they could reach out and arrest without a warrant, they could not probably do that on non-domestic violence cases. So there's greater flexibility, but there's also that peculiar 12-hour requirement. I'm sorry I haven't got a better answer for why the legislature wrote it the way they did, but that's the way it is. In the case of the guy you're talking about here from yesterday, I think his name was Malik Gill. We had charged him with a domestic violence offense here a few weeks ago, and pursuant to that, and I think maybe as mentioned by the chief in that piece you played, there was an arrest warrant that was signed by the court relating to that charge. Now, the thing to know about arrest warrants is, if we were a community of 200 people and there were 3 warrants out there, the police would know what warrants were out there and who they were against and just arrest the people when they saw them. If you've got an extreme crime, everybody's looking for the person. That's one thing. But in crimes that are less extreme, then the fact that there are warrants out there, those are one of what are hundreds and perhaps thousands of warrants in the system, and not all resources are necessarily going to be expended by law enforcement to go execute on that arrest warrant. If they felt something imminent was in hand, then I'm sure they would, as we've seen them do.
No, go ahead, Bert.
But the crime that Gill was charged with back in mid-April was a Class B misdemeanor, not a high-level felony. So, only the law enforcement officers can tell you what it is they did with the warrant and when they might have known about it. But a lot of warrants, as you might imagine, end up getting served when somebody comes to law enforcement's attention again. In other words, somebody could call them, I suppose, and say, hey, if you're looking for Joe Schmo, you're going to find him over on this corner at this time. Or what often happens is somebody's stopped for a traffic offense or is otherwise recognized by an officer who knows there's a warrant out there, and then they'll execute the warrant.
Well, and the latter part, as far as, having the warrant, and then I think the chief did explain, well, we don't have that message that goes out to all enforcement officers. It might have been the person that, in fact, was involved in the initial, incident. So, and that's a conversation I won't pull you into, because I think that's appropriate for the chief himself. My question when it comes to being able to track down, and I'm giving credit where it's due because of that collaboration, the way I understand it, that this suspect had probation in Minnesota, that you would have perhaps a probation officer having to have some address there. But again, I think that might be better suited for a law enforcement officer. The question as to, could you not have maybe found that address and found him there to prevent this? But I think that's a little bit more of a law enforcement question, Birch.
Yeah, Tyler, you're speaking a little bit. You're referring specifically to this case, and so you're
Correct.
speaking beyond my level of knowledge right now. We weren't deeply involved in the case because, as I mentioned earlier, it ended up resolving itself before it really required our involvement.
Sure.
So I'm just not privy to the details of that.
No, and I respect that. Final question I have before I let you go, and I'll give you the final word if there's anything I missed here.
Sure.
That 12-hour window, is that something that other states seem to not have adhered to that? Is that something that maybe we'd like to see changed in North Dakota?
Well, I think Tyler, the thing we'd want to do is explore a little bit about why it was put in place. And as I said, this was done over 20 years ago, and things may have changed in other states now. It's always a good idea to look from time to time at practices others use and figure out if there's some nugget of gold there that we can try and incorporate into North Dakota law. Again, I think the legislature was probably trying to do what they thought was more helpful in providing greater flexibility for arrests without warrant on lower-level crimes. Normally, you couldn't do that on a misdemeanor crime unless the officer observed the incident. But you can on domestic violence cases. The 12-hour warrant, the 12-hour limitation, I wonder if that was simply a balancing that they undertook, trying to look at what they felt the dictates of the Constitution were, so to speak, and balance it with the law and the dynamics of domestic violence.
Well, Birch, there's a lot of them listening right now, and I hope they take some of what we're saying and reevaluate in the meantime here. Anything else before I let you go? I appreciate you joining us today and helping me decipher in my little mind what was said earlier today.
No, well, I welcome the outreach. It's an interesting question, and I get why you're asking it.
All right. Well, Birch, until then, you have a good weekend. Take care, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon, all right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Birch Burdick, he is the state's attorney right here in Cass County. Your thoughts on this? I mean, one that comes to mind is resources. And a change in this 12-hour, to me, that 12 hours got to go. In fact, I got to get out of the way here. I'm being told I'm out of time. I'll come back to you right here on KFGO. I got a minute before I get you back into that award-winning KFGO News Center. I'm getting messages from a friend who's an attorney here who better keep his phone handy because I'm calling you on the break, but said the 12-hour limit is from the time the officers determine probable cause, not the time of the offense. It goes on to say it is very good and reasoned policy. My question is, but why 12 hours? Even if it's beyond the fact, why that limitation is something I think is worth a conversation, saying, is this still, all 20 years later, worthy to have that 12-hour window? So I will be making a phone call and tell you all right here on Afternoons Live what the answer to that is. Plus, we got Rusty Alverson. We're heading to Devil's Lake. We got Bry's Guide Service. He can tell you about all the open water fishing. The docks are in. The boats are on the water. He'll tell you where they're biting. When we come back here on KFGO, I'm Tyler Exodus. Don't go anywhere.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Accent Kitchen and Bath. The job is at Accent Kitchen and Bath, now hiring carpenters.
Fargo-Moorhead, mostly cloudy. We have some rain in the area, 58 degrees. I'm Paul Jurgens. Mayor Tim Mahoney says cooperation between law enforcement was key in finding the man who shot a woman and her 8-month-old at a Fargo restaurant yesterday afternoon. He stole an SUV from a South Fargo home where he ditched the car that he fled the restaurant in.
People have to remember that we're getting to be a larger and larger city. Our metro area is 235,000. What you're seeing is you have domestic issues or things that happen. Here's a good demonstration of how well our community works together, because the person was a shooter, left Fargo, went into Minnesota. Working together, we were able to capture him. It ended in a bad way in what he did. He took his life, but we all work very well together.
Fargo Police and the Cass County Sheriff's Office worked with the Clay County Sheriff's Department, the Minnesota State Patrol, and Red River Regional Dispatch in identifying the location of 24-year-old Malik Gill of Moorhead. He shot and killed himself south of Hawley following a pursuit. Police were tracking that stolen vehicle using OnStar technology. 58, this is KFGO News. 58 degrees. This is KFGO News. Fargo Fire Marshal Ryan Erickson says a fire that caused heavy damage to an apartment building at 605 11th Street South last Wednesday was caused by improperly discarded cigarettes on a third-floor balcony. The fire extended from the balcony to the attic. Damage is estimated at $350,000. The fire displaced 28 people from the 12-unit building. Grand Forks police were sent to Grand Cities Mall late yesterday afternoon on a report of a gunshot. An employee had Brothers Firearms in the mall told police he was showing a rifle to a customer when the gun went off. The bullet went through the store, across the hallway, and into another business. No one was hurt. The employee was cited for discharging a firearm within city limits. A police pursuit that ended outside the Capitol in St. Paul caused police to temporarily lock down that complex last night. Legislators and staff attending a House floor session were asked to stay in chambers until the police activity outside was resolved. Police say 4 boys are in custody after their stolen vehicle hit a squad car and then crashed in a parking lot. 3 passengers, ages 12, 13, and 15, tried to hide in a portable toilet. The 3 boys and the 15-year-old driver, who ran into a building, were quickly arrested. Minnesota Senate Republicans and House Democrats are still wrangling over a $450 million public safety bill, which is days until the clock runs out on the legislative session. Differences are deep, with Republicans still demanding a get-tough-on-crime approach, while Democrats say the only way to resolve the problem is prevention. Representative Cedric Frazier of New Hope urged Republicans,
come to the table, engage in this discussion, negotiate, and let's get this done. We're running out of time. Let's get it done.
Family members of Minnesota Congressman Jim Hagedorn claim his widow, Jennifer Carnahan, has not come through on a promise to pay back medical expenses related to his cancer treatment.
2 lawsuits filed this week by Hagedorn's mother, stepfather, and sister allege they helped pay for cancer treatments he received in Arizona. The complaints say Carnahan made a clear and definite promise to use the inheritance she was to receive after his death to reimburse his family members. Carnahan says she's waiting for the probate process to run its course and calls the lawsuits a political stunt. She is running for her husband's seat.
That's reporter Laura Oakes. Fargo-Moorhead, cloudy this afternoon, some rain, thunder showers. We did hit 59 at our KFG studios a bit earlier. Looks like the showers and thunder showers should end this evening. 44, remaining mostly cloudy. Wind picks up tomorrow out of the north-northwest at 15 to 35. Cloudy, chance of showers 50. Only 48 the high on Saturday, mostly cloudy, maybe some sprinkles, and morning frost is possible. Also a chance of morning frost on Sunday, partly sunny, and 56 in the afternoon. 58, Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Rusty Offerson back in the KFGO studio.
Yes, sir.
Promised.
You bet.
Man of his word. I love that about you.
Oh, thanks.
We're talking with Joel Kath, Proof Artisan Distillers. You were talking with
Joe
Brecker, Rutland Farmer,
North Dakota.
Yeah. Yep. Crooked Furrow. I recommend, if you have not, you go give it a shot out there.
Yeah. We were talking with Joe earlier today about some of the supplies that he provides to Proof and talked about planting progress. And planting has been a slow go for a lot of producers, and that's Joe included. Yeah, but is the key word there. According to the latest drought monitor report that we have posted at kfgo.com under the agriculture tab, 2 inches to locally over 4 inches of precip falling over parts of North Dakota, eastern Montana, half-inch or more, widespread over the Dakotas, northern Wyoming, eastern parts of Nebraska and Kansas, but severe to extreme drought expanding in Meade County, South Dakota, Tyler.
Seeing hundreds of fields, you must have found that one hill in Richland County to be able to observe all of, no offense to all my Richland listeners down there. And I said this last hour, but it bears repeating, that with the precipitation that if I look at the radar right now, I mean, it's out there. There's a reason why there was crews out till 4 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, like
trying to get as much in as they can, because today and potentially all through the weekend, I mean, chance of showers tomorrow. When Schmansky will give you a better update. Chance of a few sprinkles Saturday, Sunday, frost in the morning.
Yeah.
And then Monday again, chance of showers later in the afternoon. So.
There you go. Remember last May when we had all those cold temperatures, we had those wind events and whatnot, but this moisture, it seems like just such a 180, Tyler, to the stories you and I were talking about a year ago.
I know. Been praying for the rain. Well, it's here. Feast or famine. Either get it all at once or don't get any, unfortunately.
Yep.
Rusty, in a less than half-hour time, I want you back in that chair.
Okay, Roger.
Audibles, brought to you by Don's Car Wash. This week's contestants, I'll just tell you now, no Madison Quinn. He gone. Abby Miller is going to be here for this very own Rusty Halverson, Matt English, and a special guest. And I'll have Abby introduce them to you. And, of course, me. I'm Tyler Axis, host of Afternoons Live here. Here's what's coming up. You know what? I'll get this out of the way now, because we're going to switch gears after CBS. We're going to be talking about fishing up on beautiful Devil's Lake and why you're going to want to book your stay, and guided service through Bry's Guided Service. But visiting with my attorney friend, who was quite frankly just blunt with me, saying that, the 12 hours when it comes to these warrants about these misdemeanors, when it comes to domestic abuse, having this exemption is well-reasoned. And if it meets certain criteria, there's no reason why, if you get that, you go through the process as a law enforcement officer, and during your shift, if it meets, certain things, that you are going to make every effort to likely go and find that individual. So, as I was about to say, look, you got to get rid of the 12 hours here. I mean, there's other states, perhaps Wisconsin being one, and others that have not gone with this 12. Maybe there is a reason for it. So that way you're not basically giving someone a blank check, is the way I've rationalized it in my mind. Now, I say that with the caveat that lawmakers that are listening, I still want you to go out there and have the conversation as to critiques, if any, are needed. And quite frankly, other states have provided a platform as to having some variety in what they do allow and what they don't allow. So I think that is a reasonable question to ask going and following this tragic event. 237-5948. That's the Laney studio line. You want to text me? That's cool. I Consultants of North Dakota allows for that at 35270. I'm Tyler Axis, sitting in the Gunderson studio of KFGO. CBS News next. We're talking fishing right after that. man?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm just trying to stay dry. It's raining again.
I know. We get 2 windows in which we get graced with sun, and then we're back to rain. Water levels on Devil's Lake, though, as far as guided fishing service, which Bry's Guide Service is, ladies and gentlemen, I'm kind of happy to see that elevation is getting a little bit back up after a couple years of going down.
Yeah, and it's rising as we speak, and it's looking like it's going to go up 4 feet this year, which is a huge raise, and they're saying it's the highest raise in 1 year in the history of Devil's Lake, which is hard to believe. So there are some good things for sure, and a lot of water coming in, and the bite's been pretty good. Just a lot of things with weather and wind and rain that have probably made it a little bit tougher than most years, but it's going to get there. When the weather straightens around, it'll be really good. Yeah,
I imagine those that are out there are diehards like yourself saying, you know what, it doesn't matter, they're a little wind, unless it's white capping, obviously, then no one's going out there. And if you haven't been to Devil's Lake, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, it happens from time to time, North Dakota wind and that big old lake. But I have seen some photos, of course, online. People are having success up there, and I've been hearing it with Tanner Cherney throughout winter. Bite's been good. Does this type of water, this current that's moving, does that also help in this spring?
So what happens is, whenever you have current, especially during the spawn, the females go in there and they lay their eggs and the males follow. So there are windows that are really good. I would say the majority of the spawn is done now at this point in time. You can still catch fish in that water, but most of those females are now heading to warmer water. The one thing that with this flooding we're having is there's a lot of silt in the water because water comes from fields up north and all over, and so it makes the water dirty. And when you can't see your lure down more than an inch, that can make it a little bit trickier. You can still catch fish in that, but you want to look for that right combination of, to me, if you can see your lure like 5 or 6 inches down to a foot, that's perfect. But that right color of water is really important. So what we're finding right now, there's a fair amount of water that's dirty, so it's some searching to find the right bay. But once you do that, the warm water, shallow water, and we've had some really good bites this week for walleyes as well. And pike are doing, they're doing really well fighting as well too. So there are definitely some opportunities that we had right now. It's just, again, there's a lot of dirty water, so I'd avoid that water. I try to find the water a bit cleaner, and again, the warmest water you can find as well.
Mark, questions come into our text club at 35270, and somebody goes, Tyler, ask them about coolies. That's all they ask. So I'll ask you about coolies. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so I don't fish the coolies myself very much, but there's a lot of great opportunities for guys to go and gals off the shore and fish. And it's kind of a funny bite in the coolies because there's days where it's really slow, and then all of a sudden the fish show up, and you might have 5 walleyes, your limit, in 10 minutes. So there are fish up in the coolies right now, but they're kind of moving back into the lake. There still are some windows there, but I would just say bounce around. There's lots of different coolies you can fish. There's lots of different bridges you can fish. There's still some chances for that. But as water warms up, these fish are going to head back to the bays. So there's probably still a window there, but it's probably running out of time here pretty quick.
Very good. Mark Bry, my guest. We're talking Devil's Lake fishing, and in fact, Bry's Guide Service. So let's talk about that. Explain to people about your guide service, where you're located. You got lodging. I'm on your website right now. Beautiful facilities. People could book a trip on up there. Explain Bry's Guide Service for us.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, over 20 years. I'm getting kind of old, actually, and I started doing it. I was a school teacher, and I just wanted to be a fisherman in the summertime, and it got busier and busier, and I hired more guys to help out, and we have about 10 people working on staff now, and we have beautiful lodging and work with other resorts as well. So we have, pretty much everything you need to go fishing, from a guided trip with obviously the boats taken care of, the rods, the bait, the tackle, the fish cleaning, nice lodging. So, if you want to take a trip up here for, 2 days, 3 nights, 3 days, 4 nights, or even a day trip, we can kind of accommodate whatever you want. Large groups, small groups, we fish a little bit of everything. So it's been really good. We have really good guides. They work really hard. They have a great personality, and they just want you to have fun and have a good experience.
As far as lodging goes, what part of the lake? That way we can kind of paint that picture in someone's mind saying, well, if you go to brysguideservice.com right now, you go lodging, this is where you're going to stay.
We're the first stop if you're heading east on Highway 2. We're right on the highway. We're about 5 miles east of Devil's Lake. We have a 10-acre area here. all treed in, very nice, very secluded, very private. So it's really nice that way, and it's not too far from town if you want to go get groceries or go have supper somewhere. It's just a nice setup.
Very good. Mark, anything else before I let you go?
Nope, just the bite's going to keep getting better and better, and it'll be a great year. And with the water raising like this, the fishing usually is always really good. So definitely, if you get a chance, get out here.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be happy when I'm driving on some of those highways and I don't see old 281 popping out at me, giving me a sore eye. So I'm glad the water's coming back, and we'll get out there fishing, Mark. Appreciate your time and filling in for Tanner. You take care, all right?
Yep.
All
you
right.
too. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Mark Bry, Bry's Guide Service. You go to there, brysguideservice.com. You can check out the lodging. And plus, if you want to have that guided fishing, well, he's your guy. Going to get you this weather update because Too Tall Tom Schmansky, he's our guy when it comes to weather. He will tell you what you can expect if you get on up to Devil's Lake this weekend, or if you're running in the Fargo Marathon, of course, right here in the metro area. We'll come back, wrap up the second hour of Afternoons Live. And, of course, since it's Thursday afternoon, that means Audibles. Brought to you by Don's Car Wash. Going to be coming up here at the top of the hour. Got a whole slate for you. I'll explain all that and more as we continue on in this Thursday afternoon. You got it locked into 790 AM, 94.1 and 104.7 FM, KFGO. To you yesterday, because of the events that were taking place, we stepped aside and let our award-winning news team take over and get you all the latest you needed to know about what was going on. But I told you yesterday that I had a pair of tickets to Kansas at Shields Arena that I needed to get from me to you because that concert, well, it's this Saturday. Doors open at 7:30, and then at the end of yesterday's show, because of everything that was going on, I promise you that I'll do that today. Well, lucky for you, I've got an hour left of the show, and I'm going to do just that. And all you got to do is listen to Carrie Wayward Son, and when that hits as a bump song, you call me at 237-594. You be caller number 5, and this pair of tickets are yours. So all you got to do is be listening, and we'll play that in the final hour. You don't have to put up with me for an hour to get your chance to win Kansas. Also, right after the top of the hour, CBS National News, the KFGO News Center with Paul Jurgens. Get you your latest local news. We've got Audibles, our weekly game that we put together. That's brought to you by Don's Car Wash. You can put a smile on your car and on your face. All you got to do is choose correctly on who wins this week's game. I'll tell you who the contestants are in between CBS and KFGO because there is a new guest. We'll have Abby Miller introduce that individual so she can let you know why maybe you want to vote for them over Matt English, Abby Miller, Rusty Everson, myself. I'm Tyler Axis. This is Afternoons Live, and you're listening on either 790 AM, 94.1, or 104.7 FM, KFGO. Headed for our weekly showdown of audibles. This is the moment if you got your smartphone, you're at your desk, and the boss isn't around, you probably want to pop over to kfgo.com or find us on YouTube. You can actually watch audibles. And I had to ask Eric Johnson, who's my producer. I'm Tyler Axis. Thanks for keeping it locked in Afternoons Live. Because all the love coming in is for Matt English. Matt wins today. Tyler, all you have to do is vote Matt if he is playing. Matt English is in studio. Don't let that go to your head, Matt.
I won't. I'll try not to.
I had my producer do some research. I'm like, when's the last time Matt won? February 17th. So everyone back off a little bit.
Now,
but
he was off
March
for about a month there.
He was doing play-by-play, so it's not fair. But, okay, you can text in Matt, as all of you have. Abby Miller is in studio.
Hello.
Producer, News and Views. Fashionably on time. Appreciate that.
I know, ever since you shamed me.
On these airways. That's how I like to run a tight ship around here. You brought a guest this week. Introduce us.
My roomie, it's Gwen.
Hi, Gwen.
Hi. Gwen is weirdly talked about a lot on KFGO.
I know. And I've never met, and now I have. And now you're a contestant on Afternoons Live's Audibles. You've been listening before?
Of course.
Of course.
This has been a dream of mine.
Oh, boy.
Many
dreams do come true.
We don't let you down. You can text Gwen if you think she's going to win. Rusty Hoverson's in studio.
I'm just hanging out.
You're just hanging out. Rusty,
Gwen took your spot.
Part of our farm and ranch.
Well, you guys are, besties and whatnot, so it's okay.
You guys bump
Rusty,
elbows
you're
over
my
there.
bestie.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I got to get you caught up with KFGO News. Let me dive right in between all this. You text in who you think's going to win. Audibles right after this.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead, we have a cloudy sky and 58, signed Paul Jurgens. 2 men are facing criminal charges after their arrest in Moorhead today. Police say SWAT officers served a warrant as part of a drug investigation in the 900 block of 7th Avenue North and seized guns and ammunition. 35-year-old Richard Torres was arrested during a traffic stop and had a stolen gun. Also arrested was 24-year-old John Lopez. Torres and Lopez are both from Moorhead. The arrests were the first in Moorhead since a mutual aid agreement was reestablished with North Dakota law enforcement. A change in use of force training requirements in Minnesota forced the suspension of the agreement more than a year ago. Fargo's fire marshal has determined that an apartment fire last week was caused by a cigarette on a balcony. Ryan Erickson says the blaze started on a third-floor balcony and extended to the attic and roof at 605 11th Street South. The fire displaced 28 tenants. The building has 12 units. Police are investigating the theft of personal property from the building that took place when the tenants were forced to find another place to live. Damages were estimated at $350,000. Shortages of baby formula have led to online scams targeting desperate new parents. Bao Vang with the Minnesota and North Dakota Better Business Bureau says do your research before buying formula on the internet. Vang says there are a number of things to watch for.
No indication of a brick-and-mortar address, or the address shows a Google map as a parking lot, residence, or unrelated business than what is listed on the website.
Vang also says look for misspellings, grammatical and spelling errors, or other deceptive or descriptive language that does not look right. Family members of Minnesota Congressman Jim Hagedorn say his widow, Jennifer Carnahan, has not come through on a promise to pay back medical expenses related to his cancer treatments. 2 lawsuits filed by Hagedorn's mother, stepfather, and sister allege they helped pay for cancer treatments he received in Arizona. The complaints say Carnahan made a clear and definitive promise to use inheritance she was to receive after his death to reimburse his family members. Carnahan, who was running to replace her husband in Congress, says she's waiting for the probate process to run its course and calls the lawsuits a political stunt. Fargo-Moorhead, mostly cloudy tonight, continuing chance of showers and thunder showers. We have a large area of showers primarily to the west and northwest of Fargo-Moorhead. We hit 60, or 59 that is, at our KFGO studios earlier this afternoon. Now it's 58. 44 mostly cloudy tonight. Showers, thunderstorms should end this evening. Cloudy, windy for tomorrow. Shower chances again, and 50. 58. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
It's Thursday. It's 4:10. That means Audibles, brought to you by Don's Car Wash here on Afternoons Live. Put a smile on your car and on your face. All you have to do is listen to the game. but predict who's going to win. You can text to 35270 the first name of who you think is going to win. Abby Miller, producer, News and Views.
Yellow.
Your roomie,
My
Gwen.
roomie. Roomie or Gwen works if you text in.
Yeah, let's stick with Gwen, please. Because denim's coming in as a keyword for something else, and I don't want any more
She's
confusion.
not denim.
No, Gwen, welcome to Afternoons Live.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you. Rusty Halverson's deep in thought over here, but he's playing audibles.
#farm.
Stick
Marcus.
with Rusty. Would you stop telling them to text in other things?
Sorry.
Matt English, sports.
Yes, sir.
Wait, what's mine?
Sports.
#Joel.
No, that's a keyword, and you're going to get a lot of angry texts back from me. Eric Johnson's my producer. He put together today's game. Provide the rules for us, if you will, Eric.
All right, yeah, guys, it is 4:10 here on a Thursday, so that means it's time to play audibles. I'll go through the rules a little bit slower since we have a first-time competitor in here. I've got 5 categories on my side of the board with 4 pieces of audio in each category. We do scaled scoring on audibles, so if you can identify the correct answer on the first piece of audio, you get 4 points. Second piece, and 3 points, and so on. You'll ring in with your name. That's how I'll determine who gets to answer first. And if you answer incorrectly on any category, you're eliminated for the rest of that one. Back in on the next one. Madison won last week. He's not in studio, so we'll go 2 weeks ago, and Abby won, so she'll get to select the first category.
Oh, I forgot.
Okay.
After that, whoever gets the correct answer will select the next category. We'll tally it up at the end and see who's on top. Abby, would you like movie, TV show, character, actor, or song?
Actor.
Actor, audio clip, number 1.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Gwen.
I'm done skimming the California
Gwen.
algae off your pal.
Bradley Cooper.
That is
Why did you stare into my soul before you provided that answer?
I told her to stare at you.
Okay, wow.
I didn't know if I could buzz in yet, but I knew who it was right away.
You can. That's the point of the game.
Okay.
So
Good.
All
she's
right.
good.
Apparently,
Okay, she's
a
good.
ringer
Yeah,
has been
she's
brought
good.
on board.
Okay.
I like it.
Matt, how do you feel about this?
Oh, I don't know. I'm shaking in my boots now.
I am shook.
Comes out swinging.
Completely shook the entire studio, and you get control of the board. Would you like movie, TV show, character, or song?
Song.
Song, audio clip, number 1.
You took your time with the call.
Song, audio clip, number 2.
Those are very similar.
I know. It's the same song.
Little ragtime to start things off. Song, audio clip, number 3.
I threw a wish in the well. Don't ask me,
Matt.
I'll never tell.
Matt.
Call me maybe.
that is correct.
Oh, man.
Can you hit us with the last clue on that, please?
Your steps so ripped jeans, skin showing hot night wheels blowing. Where you think you're going, babe? Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy. Here's my number.
If you didn't get it there.
Old-timey.
Yeah, so you finish it for us,
Old-timey.
Rusty.
All right, that brings Matt into second place, but Gwen's still on top with 4 points. Matt, would you like movie, TV show, or character?
Character, please.
Character. Gwen, this is a fictional character. They are all the same character played by different people.
And I've
Okay.
confused this in the past, so it's fictional.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know.
Character. Audio clip, number 1.
貴様の罠には最後に穴が開いたな。途中で11君と入れ替わったんだ。
Character. Audio clip, number 2.
And I got a lot of time to reflect and work on myself. Did you know that seahorses that they mate for life?
Tyler.
Could you imagine?
Tyler.
Spider-Man?
That is correct.
What? No way.
From when?
I'm going to let you all settle in on that one.
Was that
was
one,
from
Mr.
the
Mc-
cartoon one, right?
Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh.
What was the first one?
That was
so
Japanese.
there was I don't know if it's late 70s or early 80s, Japanese Spider-Man show. So that was like a little clue if you're a big Spider-Man fan. It was one of the first theatrical presentations of Spider-Man, I believe.
I missed that one.
All right.
We all missed that one.
We have got ourselves a barn burner going into the last two categories. Gwen still on top with 4 points. Tyler now in second with 3. Matt in third with 2. Rusty yet to score, but still 8 points available. Final 2 categories. Tyler, would you like movie or TV show?
Movie.
Movie. Audio clip number 1.
Hey, you want to hear some great news? Ba-ba-da-ba,
Movie. Audio clip number 2.
I'm not sure. I have to get to St. Adonis Cemetery. Listen, I'm going to take you to my apartment, okay? You can stay there until I get back.
You're going to hate me, Tyler.
Tyler.
Zoolander.
That is correct.
Wow.
The eye contact, I can't.
As you tell your sweet roomie here to stare at his soul when you know the answer.
You do it to me.
I didn't mean to do that.
Could you rub off on Abby, please, for us?
Was that the Cold Steel look?
Play the first clue.
Hey, you want to hear some great news? Ba-ba-da-ba, ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
I like that.
Without much further ado, I give you the Center for Kids Who Can't Read Good.
What is this?
All right, here's where we sit. That moves Tyler into the lead.
No.
Oh, boy.
Gwen, you are in second with 4, so you need 2 points for the tie, 3 for the clean win.
Ooh.
Matt, you need all 4 for the tie. Rusty and Abby, your team Tyler. If you answer correctly at any point in time, Tyler is the winner for this week.
Okay.
That just gave them their whole... Yeah, we're sitting this one out.
Final category, TV show. Audio clip number 1.
Yeah, why don't you boil some water and rip up some sheets there, Einstein?
Matt.
It's a sprained...
Matt for the tie.
The Fairly Odd Parents.
Ooh. I thought he had something.
All right, I will replay clue number 1 in its entirety.
Yeah, why don't you boil some water and rip up some sheets there, Einstein? It's a sprained ankle. I just have to stay off it for a few days.
Oh, and he knows it now.
Matt's stressing.
Oh, no.
TV show. Audio clip number 2.
And what's your bid on the dining room set, Prince?
$350.
I'm sorry?
$350.
Can you speak up, please?
$350.
All right, and the actual retail price of the dining room set is $350.
Yay.
TV show. Audio clip number 3.
Oh, yeah? Over my dead tooth. Good afternoon and welcome to today's auction. I'm Al Harrington of Al Harrington's Wacky Waving Inflatable Arm Flailing Tube Man Warehouse and Emporium.
Do you want to take a shot? You can tie right now.
Yeah, try it.
No idea.
And finally, TV show. Audio clip number 4.
I find your attitude cavalier. May I speak to your manager?
Abby.
Stewie, come on.
Abby.
I'm sorry, is there a problem?
Family Guy.
That is correct.
I'm on the board.
On the board.
Oh, my goodness.
That will lock up
No
the victory.
goose egg over there.
For
Yeah,
Tyler.
You got a goose egg over here, baby.
I was shook on the first clue.
Did you have that at the end of the Norm Macdonald clip there, Matt?
Yeah, I did. I got too overzealous there. I should have waited for the entire clip because I knew it.
It's a very, very early Family Guy.
I was right about the animation, and Norm Macdonald voiced the genie in Fairly Odd Parents, so that's got to count for something.
There's that steel trap of the line we've come to know.
Okay.
Do you remember when we asked Matt how he was so caught up on all of the movies and shows, and he said he watches YouTube?
Mm-hmm. All the time, apparently, and then he writes notes down. Matt, valiant effort.
Yes.
Close, but not quite there. Gwen, welcome.
Thank you.
You had a very impressive first showing.
Came out swinging, and
I'll
then
be back.
You'll be back. We'll save that chair for you. Abby, thanks for participating.
You're welcome.
Rusty, damn glad to know you.
Yeah. Sitting in Madison's chair over here next to Matt. It's just out of my element, I guess.
Oh, yeah. It was the whole feng shui of the studio was off for you.
Yeah, it's power of the tub.
What?
I've never
There's a lot
heard
of sayings
that
in agriculture. That one I did not know. All right, one of you is going to get a text back from me if you chose correctly. Tyler, that's me. I won Audibles this week.
Nice.
Nice.
Congrats.
Thanks for the applause, everybody.
Woo.
That's brought to you by Don's Car Wash. You can put a smile on your car and on your face. I want to thank them for providing us an opportunity to play a stupid game every week that we have a little bit of fun at. We'll get to some of these messages. Come back. More Afternoons Live right after this. Must have been listening as I was talking. You can text in about whatever you want this final half hour. You, me, this microphone, your cell phone. One of you is going to get a text back from me about the Don's Car Wash. Haven't had a chance to do that. But obviously, with only a half hour left in the show, that means sometime between now and 5 o'clock, we will play Carry On, Wayward Son by Kansas. If you're listening, you call in, you'll get that. Coming up a little bit later on, Couch Potato Radio is going to be following the Drive Time News. That's with Jack Sunday. I'll steer you right into the Couch Potato Radio. I'll get you caught up on all the sports you need to know, which there is a little bit of drama when it comes to college football, not necessarily locally here, but Nick Saban's throwing other colleges under the bus, saying, look, they're recruiting by the promises of name, image, likeness, that they're basically paying players. This is coming from Nick Saban. How much money has he been making from the same system as a coach? I have no doubt that Derek will talk about that. And, of course, a little bit more of the recap from today and Coast to Coast. It's going to be your evening lineup. One other thing I didn't get to yesterday that I will throw out this afternoon is the fact that KFGO News, being number one and the place you come to for news because you trust Paul Jurgens, Don Haney, Tosh Garvell, Ryan Janke, and the whole crew, Madison Quinn, is that they did the research. They got the documents for the campaign disclosures here in the city election. So you're thinking city commission, you're thinking of the mayoral race. And one thing stands out, but it doesn't surprise me, and it probably doesn't surprise you if you follow North Dakota politics at all, but it's that Shannon Roars-Jones, the legislator, a state representative from South Fargo, part of Roars Construction, outraised by a lot. She outraised the opponents. I mean, I'm looking at disclosures here of, we're talking about $120,000 raised, $55,000 of that coming from her own checking account into this, which is perfectly legal, and people do that from time. I mean, there's a mayor candidate, I think, a couple of decades ago that put over $100,000 of their own money, and so I'm not criticizing that. But that means clearly there is a very big interest in getting this job. So you got Shannon Roars-Jones, about $120,000. This is the one that surprised me. When you go into who comes in second when it is the most money raised, I would have assumed incumbent Tim Mahoney would have been second with the amount raised, but that being $29,500. In fact, second as far as dollars raised, Hakun Dabar. He raised $32,000. We'll break down a little bit more of who's spent where and perhaps maybe some of the leanings as to why when you think about developers and where they put money as well. When we come back after that KFGO News, we'll check in with Paul Jurgens as the KFGO News Director. We'll get you some CBS National News and Kansas tickets from us to you in the final half hour of After News Live right here on KFGO.
News weather this hour brought to you by Otter Tail Power Company, positively impacting communities they serve for more than a century.
A cloudy sky, it's 58. I'm Paul Jurgens. Police Chief Dave Zabolski says part of the investigation into the shooting at a South Fargo restaurant yesterday afternoon will include where the man got the gun. 24-year-old Malik Gill had a felony record and was not supposed to have any firearms.
This is an individual that should not have access to or be in possession of a gun, and that's still going to be an open investigation. We will fully investigate with state and federal partners how he got this firearm, and anyone that violated the law, we will refer for prosecution, because that, at the end of the day, him having that firearm is what led to this really heinous event happening.
Gill's felony conviction was in Moorhead. There was an active warrant for his arrest for domestic violence against the woman he shot, but Zabolski says state law places limits on how long police initially have to make an arrest. The warrant was issued April 25th, and Gill was wanted. The 21-year-old Moorhead woman is in intensive care now and remains in critical condition. Her 8-month-old is in stable condition. Gill shot and killed himself south of Hawley following a pursuit with Clay County deputies and the Minnesota State Patrol. He was in an SUV that he'd stolen from a home in South Fargo. 58, this is KFGO News. .58 degrees. This is KFGO News. The Better Business Bureau of Minnesota, North Dakota is warning new parents to watch for scams as a result of the nationwide shortage of baby formula. The Bureau says scammers typically ask for payment through PayPal or Venmo, and the products are often not delivered. People should watch for signs of potential online scams, including positive reviews on the website, along with misspellings, grammatical errors, or other descriptive language that is inconsistent with the product. Another sign is the lack of a physical address for the business. Traffic fatalities were up in Minnesota last year where drivers and passengers were not wearing seat belts.
Preliminary numbers show us in 2021 that 108 of our fatalities were attributed to a driver and or a passenger not putting on that seatbelt. And as a result, they were killed in a motor vehicle crash.
Mike Hansen with the Department of Public Safety. Starting Monday, troopers, county deputies, and police officers across Minnesota will begin another Click It or Ticket campaign. Drama is not on the agenda for Minnesota Democrats this weekend, who will hold their state convention in Rochester. The 1,200 delegates will endorse Governor Walz, Attorney General Ellison, and Secretary of State Steve Simon for re-election. They're all running unopposed. The gathering will likely be much different than last week's Republican state convention, when it took delegates 9 ballots to endorse Scott Jensen for governor. After the 2020 census, Minnesota was given the 435th and final congressional seat in the House, preserving the number of seats it has held since 1960. If Minnesota had counted just 26 fewer people, that seat would have gone to New York. According to a new report from the Census Bureau, a more than 3% overcount in Minnesota's final census numbers amounted to around 219,000 residents. Overcounts suggest people who were counted more than once, for example, children of divorced parents who share custody, or people with vacation homes. Mostly cloudy, continuing chance of showers, thunder showers this evening, and about 44 for the low. 50 tomorrow, mostly cloudy, a strong north-northwest wind, and shower chances. Mostly cloudy Saturday, morning frost possible. Some sprinkles are in the KFGO Weather Center forecast too. 48 the high Saturday. 56 partly sunny on Sunday, maybe some morning frost. Fargo-Moorhead cloudy, 58. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
Now we're talking. Those phone lines lighting up because I said, you hear Carry On Wayward Son, Kansas. You call it number 5 at 237-5948. This is the last pair of tickets that I've had sitting on my desk are yours. Again, this concert going to be at Shields Arena. That's this Saturday. Doors open 7:30. You're going to want to get on over there earlier than that and take it all in. There'll be a lot going on this weekend in the area. You got the Fargo-Moorhead Marathon going on. Of course, we encourage you to stop down at Proof Artisan Distillers. After that, you can quench that thirst. Also, you got this concert. There's just a number of things going on. And quite frankly, weather not going to ruin any of that. So I encourage you to get on out and have a little bit of fun. Also, we got Under Blue Skies happening out in Bonanzaville tomorrow. We're going to have all the people on to tell you about that event that's going on. Sounds like a great time. We'll tell you more about that. We've got Erica Rapp from Fargo Underground telling you all about downtown Fargo as well, and so much more. Plus, you just heard about the Democratic convention in the Minnesota side of the river, the DFL. Last weekend, we covered the Republican. Well, tomorrow we're covering the Democrats in Minnesota. As you just heard, probably not a lot of drama, more of a coronation for what's already in office. So that's all coming up tomorrow. Did I waste enough time to hear from my producer who won the tickets?
You did waste enough time. Ron is going to go see some Kansas action this weekend.
You better use these tickets, my man, Ron. You and a friend, you and a spouse. I don't care who, as long as you and somebody are going. Again, Shields Arena, Saturday, this Saturday, May 21st. Doors open, all that at 7:30. I'm going to get you the CBS National News update. We'll come back. You me this microphone yourself. You want to chew me out? You want to agree with something? You just want to get whatever off your chest? I'm here for you. I'm Tyler Axis. This afternoon's live at KFGO.
I'm like a ship on the ocean. I set a course for winds of fortune. But I hear the voices say, carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
All right, I'm going to take a chance because the last time I did this, there was 2 different numbers saying, hey, those are the last 4 digits of mine. And lo and behold, I gave you both, whatever it was I was giving away that day. But I text back a 7576 because you selected me to win Audibles, and I'm selecting you for the Don's Car Wash. But I haven't heard back. I need your first name, last initial. You text me back, and I'll get this set up for you. Said it's an open format the whole rest of the way between now and 5 o'clock, whatever you want to get off your chest. I did bring up the campaign finance, so I'm going to start there. There's other questions. That's what I enjoy about it. I have no idea what you want to talk about. You just send it in or you call in, and we'll take any and all here. One very unique about the Red River Bridge. But when it comes to the campaign finances of this mayoral race, as I said, the thing that surprised me wasn't the fact that Shannon Roars-Jones is outraising people. I mean, even if you take away her $55,000 personal loan or donation to her campaign, yes, people are saying that's a lot of money to be putting in. And I mean, yeah, it is. I couldn't do that. I don't think a lot of you probably could out there, but all well within the confines of what's allowed. And even if you took that away, though, still outraises people by quite a long shot. So, again, when you go through, and this is all public record, so it's not like I'm throwing names out there of people that don't want to be, but you can look at, for example, Bob Jolly, a Jolly Institute here in NDSU, throwing $10,000 in there. You got Jim Roars, who certainly was in the news recently, $10,000. Roars Construction, obviously a subject of conversation because of the neighborhood association a little bit up north and the development with the view of the church, all of that. So, I mean, there are some large donations in here from other individuals as well, and some other names that you can go find at kfgo.com. But that wasn't the surprising thing for me, that she's outraising by a long shot. What surprised me was who came in second, and it wasn't incumbent Mayor Tim Mahoney, and it's not by a lot, but, I mean, it's still, I guess if you ain't first, you're last. One of those things. But Hakun Dabar raising the $32,000 that he did. And, of course, you can go through and, just like every other candidate, see who's donating how much and where they're from. So, I'm looking at a couple. And if you listen to our conversation or if you missed our conversation with Hakun, that is podcast at kfgo.com. And his background does lend him to be in other parts of the region, Minneapolis in particular. And I noticed that there's quite a bit of money that has come from residents of Minneapolis. Well, that doesn't surprise me because he's got ties in Minneapolis. Now, when it comes to the incumbent, Tim Mahoney, he raised $29,500. And going through some of this, as far as some of the names that I highlighted, you got one that's standing out is the Union 49, $5,000 there. But also, you got the Epic CEO, Amy Haas, donating a number of $2,500 to Tim Mahoney. Bring some of this up because if I have these names correct, some of them are developers donating to the incumbent mayor. Now, would you, as a competitor, be wanting to throw your money as far as competition when it comes to development, because Shannon Roars-Jones is part of Roars Construction, the development. So it's not surprising to me, and that shouldn't surprise you, that other developers are putting their money behind, in part, Tim Mahoney. Following that, you got Arlette Preston, current Fargo City Commissioner, $14,473 raised going in there. And again, I see what I think is another developer that has put some money in there to the tune of $1,700. I mean, all this is available, again, because our news team, the envy of broadcast teams in this region, number one for a reason, well, they did the research, and they got it all ready for you at 35270. So that's all available there, but your thoughts are in at 35270. Tyler, if she, meaning Shannon Roars-Jones, put $55,000 in of her own money, doesn't she get to keep any money left after the election anyway? That little gray area was, I believe, changed in the last legislative, or not last, but in a recent legislative session. And what was perfectly legal, not ideal, I never partook in this when I was involved as a candidate The reasonable and the appropriate thing to do is to set up your own account. Set up your own campaign account. You have a treasurer. They're in charge of the financing. You don't touch it. I mean, you can direct saying, oh, well, I want to get on KFGO radio because everyone's listening. I want an ad. Go cut a check and let's go air that ad on those airwaves at 790 AM and 104.7 FM, KFGO. But the treasurer signs the checks. That hadn't always been the case for everybody. It was perfectly legal for a time, but I don't think it is anymore, that you could have a candidate out there running for office, legislate. Now, federal, that's a whole other thing. And I'm not sure where lines are drawn between city, county, school, legislative. But it was perfectly fine in the eyes of the law in North Dakota for quite some time until recently. You could just take a check that was written out to friends of so-and-so, fill in the candidate's name, deposit that right in your own checkbook. Nobody questioned that, even though you should have. And in fact, finally, when that question did arise, I do believe that practice is now prohibited. And as far as keeping any leftover campaign dollars, I do not believe that is legal anymore. Now, that has nothing to prevent you from making a donation from that account to some other account, but I don't think that that is allowed in practice anymore. It used to be, but if I'm wrong, no one's ever shied away from trying to correct me at 35270 or calling me on the Laney studio line. This message comes in. So that was in reference to Shannon Roars-Jones. This one looks at first glance to be Mayor Tim Mahoney. Why is no one talking about this? The incumbent also had a $5,000 donation from the local 49, which he said was the Steelworkers Organization. I find business for them. It was a quote that comes in. He said simply about the donation, clear quid pro quo comes in from someone else. So saying that finding business for them. I wonder what requirements are in the bidding process, to be honest with you. I don't know. I throw that out there as kind of naive as to, usually you have to put out a bid. And, people will bid in, they'll come in saying, I can do that project for this amount. Then if it's reasonable, you take the lowest that you're going to be paying in taxes. So that's got to play into this. I don't know where that quote's from. If you have it, saying I find the business in quotation marks, send that in. I'll let you double dip 35270 so I can get the context of it as well. So those are some of the thoughts in on the money. The bottom line is there's a lot of money being pumped into this mayoral race. And there's just a lot of money being pumped into this primary election, generally speaking. I mean, legislative races that there's contest out there. I think about the contest out in Beulah, right, where you had an incumbent lose her endorsement, meaning Jessica Bell as the current senator. She did not get the endorsement. Now, we can talk all about how it happened, where the people out there in the district that are more that Bastiat far-right caucus, were they dragging out the process? And quite frankly, those that had worked there this morning said, look, it's midnight. I got to go home. Well, you know what? If you're not going to be there to vote, then you don't win the vote. And that's just how the game was played and is played, and perfectly fine. But that race out there alone, the last campaign finance I saw for Jessica Bell was that she raised over $100,000 already for a legislative race in North Dakota. Now, that's not the first time that a race of that level has surpassed $100,000, but in this environment, that stood out to me. And the amount of money that's being spent out there. Now, of course, with her background with coal, with what she's done for the oil industry, you're thinking tax cuts and where she sits. There's a lot of people that were surprised that she wasn't appointed to be the tax commissioner after Ryan Rauschenberg announced he was resigning. And then people thought, well, now that Brian Crocius, who was on the Public Service Commission, got the job, that maybe she was, in fact, going to get the job for the PSC. Well, she didn't get either of them, so she's got to get this spot and all this if she wants to stay where she is. And I know that there's a lot of people that have higher aspirations for her, and I have no doubt she does as well. But $100,000, these races for legislative spots used to go for like $7,000. And that was even an expensive race back in the day, but lots of money involved in all these races. I'll come back to more of these messages. I got to get you this weather update from Too Tall Tom Szymanski. In fact, that's what one of the messages relates to. I will try to text you back in the final 10 minutes of Afternoons Live on a Thursday afternoon. Stick around. Congratulations to Stephanie for winning the car wash. Thanks for getting back to us, Stephanie. And thanks for picking me and having confidence that I was going to win Audibles this week. We'll do it all over again next Thursday as well. Jack Sunday's in studio.
That was lucky, too.
I know. I didn't feel real confident going in this week. Well, you start off the day up in beautiful Hillsboro at a brewery.